It's Sports by the Book at the South Point Studio. Here's Jeff Parles and Alex White.
Good morning. Welcome in. Sports by the Book, South Point Studio. Jeff Parles, Alex White. It's a college football Saturday. It's all good, right?
It is.
Week 2?
It's really good. A lot of good games on the board, too.
Yeah, it's a loaded card, and we'll go through as many games as we humanly can in 1 hour's time. How about that? We'll do 1 hour's time on that. And Alex, you wanna just fire away? Let's start with this with a game I know we're both on. Thank you, rotation numbers, for being right where they needed to be. By the way, real quick, here at the South Point, we both have. Wow, look at how organized our guy Sean is. Look how organized he is. He could put him in order, no less, for all of us. You got your NFL reverse teaser. You got your $25,000 jackpot card, which, by the way, is closer to $30,000 right now. Only $5 entry per card. And then all of your parlay cards, half point, ties win teaser, and then the super teaser, ties win as well. And then, of course, the first score of the 9 a.m. games by time of game, not time of day. Vinny will be in here later to scold people yet again on that. And then which team will score the most points in college football today, always available here at the South Point.
It is no secret. Our guy Sean, he does love these teaser cards. He's done very well last season. So happy that he brought these in for us to see. And we might have to take a look at a team to score first or highest points on the board today.
We'll see if you have any looks by the end of the show.
Yeah.
Let's get into the game I was talking about at the top there that we both have a play on. Right at the top of your rotation numbers today, 305 and 306. Syracuse and Georgia Tech. Alex, I'll give you the floor first here. The Yellow Jackets, 3-point favorites in this game and a total of 60.
So Georgia Tech has played very well in their first 2 games. Of course, they upset Florida State. So I don't want to take anything away from them. I do have a lot of respect for them. I think they are very good, especially, their quarterback, Haynes King, has played outstanding, completed 78% of his passes. I think this is just a good spot. It's a great situational spot. I also made this game about pick here. So I think that the 3 points, you're definitely getting value. And Georgia Tech is ranked in the top 5 now, first time in quite some time. So I love Syracuse here getting that field goal with the 3 points, maybe even a little bit on the money line. As I said, I made this game a pick. I think they're Georgia Tech's about 3 points better there and giving the home field to Syracuse. So, and I believe you like the dog in this one as well.
So just real quick on this game, I think the first point that you said is the biggest reason I'm on Syracuse. This is a bad spot, all things considered, for Georgia Tech, where playing an extra game. Now this is the second road trip they've taken. Now, granted, going to Syracuse, New York is a lot different than going to Dublin, Ireland, obviously, but that win in Dublin after what we saw last week in Tallahassee has to be devalued. Florida State is nowhere near as good as we thought they were going into the year. They might even actually be mediocre, shockingly enough. And for Syracuse, Kyle McCord looks like he's at the level of college football that he should be at. Played a great game last week against Ohio. Fran Brown had that. It looks like he's ready for the moment to be the head coach at Syracuse. A little bit of concerns on the defensive end. They did a few things last week I didn't like against Ohio. Haynes King has looked excellent so far for Georgia Tech. But when it's all said and done, you're giving me a field goal in a game that I also think should be a pick, and maybe even Syracuse a small favorite in this game. I'll very happily take the 3 with the Cuse and a little sprinkle on the money line as well, plus 130 on the orange here this afternoon.
As you mentioned, Haynes King again, and I forgot to bring up McCord on the other side. This is a quarterback who's coming from Ohio State, who finished 11-1 last year in the regular season, completed 66% of his passes there, 3,170 yards, 24 touchdowns, and just 6 INTs. So, yeah, you've got a great player there to lead this offense. So another great point of why we like the dog.
Let's go to the second game on the board, Tulane and Kansas State. Tulane actually went to Manhattan a year ago, pulled an upset, but it's a very different team here for the Green Wave here in 2024. Of course, new head coach. New quarterback with Michael Pratt now in the NFL. Ty Thompson looked good in the first week for Kansas State, for Tulane, I should say. Kansas State, second game with Avery Johnson with the undisputed helm of that program. Alex has opened in double digits. It's been pretty much 9 and 8.5 at most books all week here at the South Point. It's been 9 for about 3 days. Total's gone down 2 points. Where would you be coming down, if anything, here on this one in New Orleans?
So this is one that it feels like there's a lot of strong opinions one way or the other, and I don't really have one in this game. I made Kansas State 8.5 point favorite on the road here at Tulane. So potentially, if I jumped in early and got double digits, that could have been a play, but I just didn't feel like it was enough edge there for me. I do agree with the total moving down. I saw 49 earlier on in the week, and now it's sitting at 47. I have it at 47 as well, but nothing strong enough either way. Kansas State have looked very good with Avery Johnson at quarterback, and then Tulane last week won 42-0. So I'm against Southeastern Louisiana. So I'm sure that's why people are jumping on Tulane with the points, but that's a team that is well below average for college football.
I like double digits. I don't like anything shy of that. That's really the way that I look at this game. If those 10s, those 10.5s, yeah, if you took them, job well done on Tulane. Now I would pass. I'm not really interested in the road game laying it with K-State, but I think this will go a long way to seeing how good the Wildcats really are. Have they taken another step forward back to where they were winning the Big 12 2 years ago? A little bit of a backtrack last year. Still were a very good team en route to a Pop-Tarts Bowl winner a year ago. An edible Pop-Tart was probably the highlight of bowl season, except for the college football playoff. But did no play at these numbers. If we somehow see a 10 by kick, which there's no way that's happening, yeah, go ahead. If we somehow see it go down to 8 flat on Kansas State, I don't mind you going that direction. So that would be the way that I would look at this one in New Orleans. Penn State and Bowling Green, I don't want to really waste a ton of time on this. I just want to bring this up because Bowling Green has been bet through a key number of 35 from 36 to 34, 51 to total. Total's gone up. I actually might bet Nicholas Singleton to score multiple touchdowns in this game, the Penn State running back, and get a reasonable plus price out there at select books. North of $2. I know that may sound really, really low, but when the guy's anytime touchdown is in the close to the $3 range, it's honestly not terrible. So I would look for Penn State to win this game. 34 is a lot of points, but we do know James Franklin knows the number and likes covering spreads, Alex.
Yep, and I'm right there at that 34 and 50 for my total. So nothing for me. Very impressive win for Penn State. I don't know if we've really gotten to talk about it, but
sure was.
Yeah, against West Virginia, and Drew Aller looked good, who we have had our reservations about in the last couple years. So yeah, I would, this number's good. I like your prep play though.
Yeah, very rare college football prop for me. You'll maybe hear that maybe 3 more times the rest of the regular season. Maybe a little more when we get to the postseason for college football, but regular season wise, I don't really dabble overly too much. Let's go to Pitt and Cincinnati. Alex, yesterday when we talked about this on Football Frenzy with Chris Andrews and Vinny Magliulo, the overarching thought of this game is neither of these teams are any good. Pitt put a lot of points, but gave up a lot of points to a really bad Kent State team last week. The Bearcats won big against an FCS opponent. The big news for the Bearcats is they get their big defensive tackle Dante Corleone back, cleared after an issue with blood clots during the offseason. So that's really good news for Cincinnati, an all Big 12 performer from a year ago and a projected Big 12 all-conference player preseason. With that said, I'm not doing it, but I would only take the short underdog price on Pitt. I think these teams are dead even. I think they both are pretty mediocre, and I would lean to Pitt. I don't like either of these coaches. I like Narduzzi, I dislike Narduzzi a little less than I dislike Satterfield as a coach. So slightly in the Pitt, but nothing too strong, Alex.
It's a lean to Pitt for me as well. I have Cincy a 1-point favorite at home here. I took the over. I jumped in at 61. I don't love it. I actually used this for a contest play too at 62.5. And I don't love that I used a bad number, but it is still moving in that direction. And you brought it up. I mean, Pittsburgh put up a lot of points, couldn't stop Kent State. They had 557 total yards in that one. They allowed 212. And then on the flip side, Cincy, 658 yards and allowed 438 to Towson. I just think we're going to get into a shootout here with these two. So I do like the over. I made this number 66. Again, not really. I like to have a 5-point difference on my totals. We're getting away from that now here.
This is for last night. We saw it with Duke and Northwestern, a game that's probably critical for a team if they want to slide to that 6-win plateau and get to a bowl game. Sort of the same deal here with Pitt and Cincinnati, two bottom-tier Power 4 teams. All right, let's go to Boca next. Army takes on Florida Atlantic. Chris, in here yesterday, said that this game had monster two-way action across the board. Two-way action. I can't do it the same way Vinny does. Vinny will do it at the end of the show. Up and down the ladder in this game. Started at 2. FAU laying it at home all the way up to 4. Now back down the ladder at 2.5, and a total of 42 in this one, Alex White.
I've got nothing in this one.
Okay.
FAU against Michigan State. They hung around in that one. Yep. And right there in the yardage, if you really dig deeper, Michigan State 293 to 248. I lean FAU as the home team here. I have them a 3-point favorite at home and lean to the over a little bit. I made this 46, but I did not bet anything in this game.
This is a very interesting matchup where FAU's defense looks significantly better than I would have expected a week ago. And you always have to have that question. How much of that is the fact that Michigan State is just not ready to win at this point? And it is a multi-year and a potential, we'll get to that in a little bit, a multi-year project for Jonathan Smith in East Lansing, or is Michigan State's defense just actually good? I'm talking about the offensive side of the ball for FAU.
Yeah.
Now that we're below 3, this is a play on FAU for me. I thought at the opening number at 2, I thought it was quite good. Once we got to 3, it's like, all right, still lean, but not great. Once it went through 3, it's like, all right, forget it. Now that we're back through 3 the other way, I am going to have FAU on the card here at this 9 a.m. Pacific time start time. They're just a better football team. And for Army, I don't care that they beat up on Lehigh. Lehigh's a bad FCS team. So take nothing from that on all right, you did what you're supposed to, but not much more than that. FAU is a play here at laying 2.5. Tom Herman's squad gets on the board with a win here in this game. All right, the big one. Ralph Sirocco wants this pick. He's been waiting in studio for it. Michigan and Texas. And Alex, we have to bring this up real quick because this game was sitting at 7, mostly 7, some 7.5, but really 7 this whole week. And now we're back to the original opener of 6.5. Texas laying it in the big house against Michigan. Total's also been bet down 3.5 points from 45 to 41.5.
I made Texas a 3-point favorite here on the road, and we'll see how I need to adjust. But yes, I took the 7 points here with Michigan.
So I just want to ask you this question, and then I'll give you my thoughts. You just said you made a 3.5. It is the worst of the number technically, but it's still a full field goal better than your numbers. If someone who, let's say they didn't have access to a book until this morning or whatever it may be, or you're just getting around to it, at this number at 6.5, just think of it someone who's betting it fresh. Is it still a play right now for someone fresh? I understand it's going against you have a chill in your bones because you missed the best of the number. I get it. But for someone who may be listening for the first time this week, is this a play at 6.5?
Not for me.
Not for you. Okay. That's all I was looking for. For me,
that's really how I got to even that play. I'm like, I'm getting a full touchdown here with Michigan, and we'll talk about a later game, which I know you're on the other side, but I had the same rationale and it did work out with my numbers. But there is a talent gap here still, right? And I know Michigan kept a lot of really good players, especially on the defensive side, and that's another case that we're going to make for them. But
so I'm happy that because for me, this game of the year line when Chris put it up was 3.5. That's basically what everyone had for the game when it was out as a game of the year. I think this is a little bit of an over adjustment even at 6.5. I was fully prepared if this, let's say this toggle between 6.5 and 6 instead of 6.5 and 7.5 the whole week, I'd be taking 6.5.
Okay.
The only reason that I wouldn't take it right now for myself is because I have 7 in my pocket. But if you were out there, I actually still think this is good on Michigan at 6.5. This is for Texas. I really didn't. All right, you beat up on Colorado State. A little more impressive than what Michigan did against Fresno. But this is a whole different animal. You're going to one of the hardest places to play. It's cold for Texas. Now, granted, it's not like Michigan's going to the humidity. I think that would have impacted more. But this is a big test for Quinn Ewers. This is going to be the best defense that he faces early in the season. Now he'll face Georgia later in the year, so this is a nice little measuring stick for him. But I would not be shocked if Michigan wins this game outright. I have not thought that all week, but over the last 24 hours, I'm kind of in the camp of, hey, that defense is still elite. Will Johnson's arguably the best defensive player in the country in that secondary position. Good enough run game with Donovan Edwards leading it. Still a ton of questions at quarterback for Michigan. No, I still want to see more of Alex Orji, who we did not see much of all last week. We just ran the football a little bit. And, of course, the new quarterback in Michigan with Davis Warren, who has been on the team for 4 years and in a redshirt senior. There are a lot of questions there. But when push comes to shove, defense, we know, Alex, in these early season games can rule the day. I took 7.5 as well. I'm going to sprinkle a little bit on a late money line. I know I missed the best of it, but it's only about a 15-cent difference, which, yeah, I get it. You're missing best of it from the week. But still, I think Michigan is live here to pull this out right.
I do just want to bring up, Texas has a very good defense as well.
Oh, they sure do.
So Michigan will have to, really, be strategic. And like you said, they are going to run the ball a lot. They did 62% of the time last year. We know more was the OC steps in. So I don't think that's going to change. They have the weapons there to do that. So it is going to be a tough game, a battle between these two. But, looking at that total, we know it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think they can hang in there. I'm not quite to the camp that they are going to win this outright, but it's going to be a great game.
Yeah, and look, and for Texas, I have Texas power rated number 3 in the country. I have Michigan power rated number 12. So, again, we're still talking about top 15 teams here. And look, for Texas, they went on the road, beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa last year. So they are used to going into ridiculously hard environments and coming out with wins. All right, let's go to a Big 12 SEC matchup. Oklahoma State welcomes Arkansas. Alex, this has been a mover on the Pokes from 8.5. They go down to 7 initially, but now back up the ladder to 10. 61.5 the total in this game. Arkansas beat Arkansas Pine Bluff by roughly 5,000 last week. I don't take anything from that. I know it's weird to say for some that Oklahoma State played a FCS team last week, but they played arguably the best FCS team, and they really handled their business in a 24-point win over the Jackrabbits of South Dakota State. Oklahoma State might just be pretty good this year, Alex White.
I would have to agree, and I just talked about I have them top of the Big 12 with Utah and some others very, very close. But, Mike Gundy has done a great job there. He returned 90% returning production in his on his team. Alan Bowen looked really good last week, like you said, against a really good South Dakota State team. 267 passing yards, 7.9 yards per play, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. And on the flip side, I just think Sam Pittman still has some work to do in Arkansas. Taylon Green, quarterback there, pretty average numbers for him and what we saw from him last year. 57% of his passes and just 6.8 yards per play. So I think they're just overmatched here. I made Oklahoma State 13. Very happy to lay anything under 10. I think you missed the best of the number here. But I also lean to the over, but you do have to be careful. Oklahoma State wants to play really fast. We've seen that through the years. Arkansas is going to try and slow this game down, but I made it 65, so I think you're okay on the over as well.
I expect a big day for Ollie Gordon. That's all I'll say. The Big 12 offensive player of the year going into the year, the monster year a year ago. I expect a huge game out of Gordon. I would only lean. I know it's the worst of the number, but I would only lean to the Pokes. I don't take anything from Arkansas's win last week. They were playing a team that was so severely overmatched that you can't take anything.
And I do like Chris Andrews brought up Oklahoma State has one of the best home field advantage.
Yes.
Have done very good there, so they will be prepared for this matchup.
Auburn and California, the Golden Bears making a long trek east to the Plains to take on Auburn. 11.5 on the Tigers now, Alex. 53.5 your total. This has gone down from 14, so it's pretty much been one-way traffic on the California Golden Bears in this one on the road at Jordan-Hare.
Auburn did look very impressive last week, but you can only take so much. 73-3 win over Alabama A&M. Completely dominated, though. 628 yards to 240. I do think that Hugh Freeze is building this program up. It's just a matter of how much. I think that number is way too big. I would take the points with Cal, but I went ahead and bet the over with them because we're also seeing Hugh Freeze took over the offense second half of last year, and they improved tremendously. Now he does bring in Derek Nix to help him run the offense, but we're seeing them play a lot faster, and I think Cal will be doing the exact same. They were terrible on the ground last week, so they are going to have to throw the ball more to hang in this one. So I like the over as the best play in this game.
At 14, this was quite good on Cal. Now that number is you can't justify it at this point. Gone through 13 and even 11 is somewhat of a key number as well. I'm going to stay out of this. I just don't trust the California offense when it's all said and done. But again, what are we taking from Auburn? Again, the SEC teams should not be playing SWAC teams. You shouldn't be. You can learn, you delve nothing from what Auburn and Arkansas did a week ago. Auburn's one of all the SEC teams, Alex, Auburn is the one I was most confused on going into the season. Widest range of outcomes. So I'm very curious to see how they look against again, not a great Power 4 team by any stretch, but still a Power 4 team at that in Cal. All right, let's go to a game I know you like. Baylor goes to Salt Lake City to take on Utah in a Big 12 game that isn't a conference game. All right. Yeah, well done, everybody. Alex, it's 14.5 behind us with a total of 55. There's a whole boatload of 15s out there now. So the market has gone on Utah this morning. But here it's been a toggler from 15 to 14.5 to 14 to 14.5 to 15, all up and down, and has been sitting at 14.5 for about 12 hours now.
I was just shocked when I saw this number open, especially at that 17. If you grab that with Baylor, tremendous job. I personally think you're still good here, over 2 touchdowns. Baylor won last week 45-3. Again, how much do you want to take from that? Tarleton State. But they looked really good, 442 yards, held them to 181. And then their quarterback, that's kind of the question mark here. Finn comes over from Toledo. He was the MAC MVP last year, dual threat guy. So we'll see what he can do up against a really good Utah defense. We know Whittingham always has his defense ready to go. And then them having Cam Rising back is just tremendous. It's tough. I mean, they're the top team in most people's Big 12 and for good reason. So I think this is going to be a great game. I just don't think Utah is going to run them out of the building. I think you're okay here. I made it 10. So that's a good 4.5 point difference even here at not the best number. And we'll see. Maybe I even have Utah low, but I thought I had them pretty high compared to the market.
I have no play on this game. The biggest thing I'm looking at last week, again, I can't take much from Baylor beating up on Tarleton State and Utah beating up on Southern Utah. But on the Utah front, Cam Rising looked healthy. And if Cam Rising is healthy, Utah is at worst the third best team in the Big 12 if he's healthy. And Baylor, I had projected as a bottom 4 team in this league coming year, and I like Finn. I loved him at Toledo. He's a really fun player to watch. But the rest of that roster is just still lacking. Probably, if anything, if you made me play anything in this game, it would be the under. That would be the only way that I would look to go here. It kind of feels like a Utah inflicts his will defensively game. One of those ones where inflicted it on Southern Utah. All right, ho-hum, whatever, FCS opponent. But that would be the direction I would look to go. And again, this might be a good in-game game because you might be able to tell early in this one, especially if Utah looks sharp early in this game. All right, let's go to the SEC. Alex, this has been a total that I loved early in the week that I don't love anymore because Kentucky and South Carolina's total opened 45. I thought that was a great under at that number. Bettors pretty much ate it up pretty quickly within a day, and now is all the way down to 41.5 on this total. Kentucky opened 10, now it's 9 at home in Lexington against the Gamecocks.
I would like the home team here and laying the points with Kentucky, but I am a little concerned. They do have Georgia up next, so yep. I don't want to jump in here at a look-ahead spot, especially because South Carolina did not look good last week, and I don't want the Wildcats to overlook them, thinking that this is an easy matchup for them. But I made Kentucky 14 here at home against South Carolina. I know maybe I have an overreaction from last week. We will find out. But, yeah, I would only play Kentucky, even with the potential look-ahead spot here.
If we're just going off of how teams looked last week in the SEC, the only one that looked worse than South Carolina was Florida. They were the only one who looked glorious. Yes, I know A&M and LSU lost, but look at the opponents they played and look at who South Carolina played. Sorry, Old Dominion. You're not on the level of the teams that beat LSU and A&M. But South Carolina was the second least impressive team in the SEC last week. And Kentucky looked really good. Brock Vandagriff looked every bit as good as we would have hoped in his debut for Kentucky in a lightning-shortened game against Southern Miss. But under feels really good in this, felt really good at 45. Maybe if we get an early touchdown and the number spikes back up, I'll probably come in game. But at 41.5, that's just super, super low for this matchup where it's not, Kentucky's not a pushover offense. They're just not anymore with Vandagriff there at the quarterback position. All right, real quick on this game. 4 touchdowns in South Bend, but it has been an aggressive mover here from 31 to 28. So they've been all Northern Illinois Husky action in this game, Alex White. Total of 46 with the Irish laying 4 touchdowns at home.
That's a lot of points there. I did not make Notre Dame that big of a favorite, so it is definitely a lean to the points here with the dog and Northern Illinois. I know Notre Dame, they had a great win over A&M, but this could be a spot where maybe they come out a little bit slow, a little bit flat from that big win. So I would only be taking the points here with the dog.
I for Notre Dame, again, this is last week's win was so important for their basically to put themselves, hey, we just have to go 10-2 and we're getting in the college football playoff now, which is basically what it is. And it's kind of funny where their schedule, we always circled, all right, A&M, Florida State, USC last week of the season. Now it's Louisville, Georgia Tech, USC the last week of the season for Notre Dame. You win, even if you win one of those games, especially now that USC may be a legitimate college football playoff threat, Notre Dame just got to go about handling their business. But you are right. That is a lot of points, and I'm not surprised the market is taking this down from 31 to 28, also in a game that's only totaled 46. Ooh. So not overly shocking that the market has loved the Huskies of Northern Illinois. All right, let's go to the Cyhawk in Iowa City this year. Iowa, 2.5-point favorites against their in-state brethren, Iowa State. Alex has been a toggler all week. 3, 3.5, 3, 2.5, 3, 2.5, 3. Has settled in at 2.5 over the last 24 hours. Total 35.5. Not much movement on that throughout the week.
Wow, we're getting 2.5 again, huh? I made Iowa a 5.5-point favorite at home here against Iowa State. Is that good enough to lay it, Alex? I think that is good enough to lay it. I mean, Iowa looked impressive last year. We know that they have always been a outstanding elite defense, and then getting their quarterback, they looked good. They put up 40 points last week, and I don't want that to be an overreaction, but Cade McNamara. Thank you, McNamara.
You got it.
Was injured last year, right? He went down after 4 games, and he looks healthy again, too. So I do like the home team, even though we do have really good quarterback play on the other side, too. With Rocco Beck, he looked impressive in that first game. We know this is a rivalry game. Could go either way. For 35.5 is very tempting to go over. I'm going to wait, though. This is the one game I want to see in-game. If it's low scoring and I can get 30 or maybe even lower and go over that, I will do that for in-game.
Iowa State's one of these teams that I think the market likes too much. That's where I'm at with them. I think they're a top half Big 12 team, but I don't think they're as good as the market thinks they are. And for Iowa, look, Iowa won this game last year and put up 20-plus in that game when they had no offense to even be approached a year ago. Second half last week was actually kind of promising for Iowa's offense. Now, again, it's Illinois State. You can't take much from it, but they finally actually looked like a college football offense in the second half. And I know they torpedoed a lot of unders, but that's what they did with that second half. But for me, this has always been Iowa all week. They have the better defense, and more so than anything, even though Iowa State's offense is clearly better than Iowa's, there's no arguing that. They're better at the skill position. Their wide receivers are really, really good. As we know, and for Iowa, just being able to turn the page on what was last year just an embarrassment on offense, and to have that performance in the second half, I think that does a lot for this team moving forward. Again, I'm not saying they're making a college football playoff. I'm not saying they're winning 10 games or anything, even though their schedule is conducive to winning a lot of games this year. But I like Iowa, and I like them to win this game by 10 points. So I'm good laying 2.5. In this one, they shut down the the two Jays, Higgins and Noel, Jaden and Jalen, respectively, on the outside, and that's more than enough.
I will bring up Iowa State last week, played North Dakota, 121-3.
Yep.
Jeff Fogel has a great newsletter that you can get, and he wrote last week that is very telling. He wrote, it's historically a red flag if you can't score the spread, and it means that something is wrong. So they opened a 28.5-point favorite, closed 30.5, and only put 21 points on the board against North Dakota and won that one by 18. So I thought that was an interesting note there, and I kind of feel the same way about Iowa State as you. I don't think they are as good as the market has them right now.
Let's go to the Big Ten next. Maryland hosting Michigan State. Maryland 9 and 8.5 in the market, so it's all dependent on where you are betting this game. Alex, 44.5 on the total. Michigan State won, but unimpressive a week ago against FAU. Maryland probably still scoring against UConn as we speak, even though the game ended a week ago, a 50-7 win in that one against the Huskies.
I think this is an overreaction both ways, right? Because like you said, Maryland looked really good, and Michigan State was not impressive against FAU. Aiden Childs had 2 picks in that game, which was the same amount that he had stepping in and playing as the backup at Oregon State last year. So I think that we're going to see him come back into better form here with his second start. And Maryland played against Connecticut, who is pretty low on my power ratings for an FBS school. I would say about 1/18th of the 134. And they have a below average defense. So I think that is why Maryland looked so good last week offensively. 9 points. I'm happy with that. Getting more than a touchdown here with Michigan State. One of my top plays of the day.
I'm staying out of this game. I actually did lean to Maryland because Michigan, and that was confirmation bias for me on Michigan State last week. I thought Michigan State was going to be at the bottom of the Big Ten, one of the 3 or 4 worst teams in the league. And boy, they looked the part last week against FAU. I'm not saying I love Maryland. I think they're fine. I think they're a perennial bowl team. I don't think they're much more than that. So this is a stay off because just the fact that I thought this was going to be 7 and hasn't really budged from 8.5 or 9 all week. There was a little 9.5 for a small period of time. And it's a little interesting to me. So, and maybe if Michigan State gets out to an early score, maybe I'll pop in on Maryland the other way. It wouldn't be a shock if Maryland ends up winning this game by 10 to me, but might be a little tighter all the way through than expected. All right, Alex, I know this is not the most intriguing game, but Ole Miss is a huge favorite against Middle Tennessee State. 42.5, 62 on the total. Ole Miss, as we have seen in the Lane Kiffin era, one of those teams that's willing to just keep the foot on the gas pedal all week long. Middle Tennessee needed a last-second touchdown to beat Tennessee Tech last week. Ole Miss put 76 on Furman. This will get ugly. And if somehow we see a 42 without the hook, I would lay it with Ole Miss.
I would only be on that side as well. This is not one of the big dogs that I want to be a part of. Ole Miss looked very good. Jackson Dart, quarterback for Mississippi, 5 touchdowns last week for him. So that would be a team that I would actually want to look at to score the most points.
They're today. The favorite this week. They are the favorite. They are 4-1.
4-1.
Not surprising. Alabama, by the way, your second favorite. 5-1 on Mississippi. 5-1. Bama's 8-1. And then 10-1 on Ohio State rounds out your top 3. Ohio State, huge favorite today against Western Michigan, by the way. The Buckeyes in that game sitting at 37 right now. All right, moving along. Let's go to, speaking of Alabama, we'll go there next. The Tide welcome South Florida. It's 31 in this game. Thank you, Sean. Look at Sean putting in work this morning as always. Those are all your options for the highest scoring team in college football here on this Saturday. Right behind us here at the South Point. You only have about 25 minutes to get that bets in. That locks up at the top of the hour. Looking at Alabama and South Florida, 31 in this game. Remember last year, that's the game Jalen Milroe didn't play in, and Alabama looked awful in that game. They won, but they really struggled with their backup quarterbacks. Now South Florida gets to see Jalen Milroe. Look, I have South Florida as a top 3 AAC team, which may be a little bit overrated in comparison to what the market is. This is a boatload of points to be getting with a non-pushover. This is close to what it closed last week against Western Kentucky. And South Florida is, to me, 10 points better than Western Kentucky.
Whoa.
Significant. Now, I know I'm different in the market, but I think South Florida is very underrated going into this year. Good coach, good quarterback. I think they cover 31. And I do think this game goes over that 64.5. If anything, pace-wise, we saw from Alabama is indicative to what they're going to do this year under Kalen DeBoer.
I have another big underdog with a lot of points like this coming up, but this is not one for me. This was a pass right away. I thought both those numbers, the spread and the total, looked right and came out to about where mine were.
Keeping it in the Southeastern Conference, Buffalo will go to Missouri. Mizzou 34-point favorites in this game at home with a total of 52, Alex White.
Again, I'm okay passing on this. I'm not jumping to take those points here with Buffalo. It'd be more to a lean to Mizzou actually laying those points.
I like the under. I think what we saw last week from Mizzou's defense, again, Murray State, not a good FCS. Buffalo's not a good football team. And I don't think Buffalo is going to be able to move the ball in this game against Mizzou's defense. And with the way Mizzou's schedule, all of a sudden, it looked like September is going to be a complete cakewalk. The next 2 weeks, Boston College and Vanderbilt both won last week as underdogs. Those games are no pushovers anymore. So I have a feeling if Mizzou is up big, this is really take the air out of the ball. I do lean to the under at 52 on Mizzou and Buffalo. Now let's go to Wake and Virginia. Alex, I don't think either of these teams are any good. Wake is a 1-point favorite at home behind us. There's a bunch of pick in the market as well. Totals bounced around as high as 57, as low as 54. It's right smack dab in the middle right now at 55.5.
I think these two teams are pretty much dead even, and we saw that in their performances last week. Both of them did get a win. Virginia 34-13 over Richmond, who is a pretty good team. They do have a better competition coming into this game with Wake playing North Carolina A&T, who is well below average football team for them. So that gives me a slight lean to Virginia here. And I made them a 2-point favorite on the road. So it would be Virginia play for me.
I really think both of these teams are terrible, personally. I really, really do. Wake's just really not any good this year. Another transition year in Winston-Salem. And Virginia, I would only be a lean to that side. I think I'm with you. That would only be a lean to the Cavs, who I think are slightly less bad. If that makes any sense.
There's better games on the board.
Oh, there are much better games on the board.
But
which we're getting to one right now. Kansas goes to Champaign to take on Illinois. All right, Alex White. These teams played last year in Lawrence. Kansas won and covered. The number's gone from 6-4 on this game. KU still favored on the road in Champaign with a total of 57.5. I know you love yourself a good taste of revenge, especially here in the morning on Sports by the Book.
I do, but it's not enough. Even giving Illinois those 2.5 points for revenge, I think this number is correct here. So this is going to be a very good game. I just don't have a strong opinion. I think Kansas is the better team, and I have them 4 points on the road here as well. So nothing for me. No big play.
Now that we're back to 4, I like Kansas. Now that we're back to 4, Illinois was a monster disappointment last year. I actually thought they had an opportunity to even win the Big Ten West a year ago, and just they were under 500. They were mediocre a year ago. Kansas is a program on the rise, as we've talked about. Lance Leipold has really turned things around. Jalen Daniels, slow start last week, but really once they got going, they did what they were supposed to against a mediocre to bad FCS in Lindenwood, winning big. They didn't cover because the number was so large. But in the end here, Alex White, I just think Kansas, I thought that 6 was right. Closer to being right. I thought it should have been a full 7. And now, and I'm curious to see if this keeps creeping down by the time the game starts. At 4, I think it's good. If we get 3.5, 3, I don't think we'll get 3. I think there would be buyback at that point. But if we get south of 4, this is definitely a fire on KU here. They're just better. And Jalen Daniels is the best player in this game.
Absolutely. I'm definitely with you there. I mean, we know he's dealt with his injuries, and that could have been part of his slow start last week. But after getting that first game under his belt, I think they'll be fine.
Moving along here, Alex. This is not the most intriguing game, but this was one game we talked about yesterday with Chris and Vinny. that we were a little bit perplexed on where the line moved in this game, and that's Air Force against San Jose State, and it just continued to move after the show yesterday. It was 6.5 at the open. This game's in Colorado Springs as well, home game for Air Force. 6.5, which I thought was right. No, there was no problem with that. And we're all the way down to 3. Just a lowly field goal in this game. Service academies really don't give out injury reports, kind of find out when the game starts, unless if a guy is out for the year. There's got to be something injury-wise going on with Air Force, because that's the only thing that would even make remote sense for this nosediving like this.
I had Air Force 6.5-point favorite. I'm glad I did listen into you guys' show and you guys talked about it, because Chris did say if you are an Air Force better, be cautious. So I didn't jump in here to lay the points here with the home team. It's a definite stay away from me. Interesting that the movement has been all San Jose State.
Yeah, I'd almost go to Air Force at this point, but I'm just so concerned with the way this has moved. San Jose State's below average. Mountain West team, Air Force slightly above average. I'm a little bit confused on this line move, which, again, got to be some sort of injury that we just don't know about publicly yet on the Air Force side. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, Vincenzo joins us. And he gets a good one to start off with. Colorado and Nebraska. We look at the nighttime games when we get back here on Sports by the Book.
We have 11 amazing restaurants featuring a wide variety for every price range and appetite. South Point's Garden Buffet has something for everyone at unbeatable prices. Or if hunger strikes in the middle of the night, join us at Coronado Cafe. The American menu offers breakfast, lunch, or dinner 24 hours a day, plus a Chinese kitchen for authentic Chinese dishes from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. From steak and eggs to wonton soup, it's fast and friendly service 24/7. When you need a quick pick-me-up, you can find it at our state-of-the-art Starbucks just inside the main South Point entrance. Order ahead with the Starbucks app for easy mobile order pickups, or enjoy your favorites in the relaxing dining area anytime, day or night. If you love Mexican food, Baja Miguel's has all of your south of the border favorites. There are dozens of classics to choose from, like fajitas, ceviche, chimichangas, tacos, and more. And for spirit lovers, Baja's colorful non-smoking tequila bar is right outside.
Welcome back in Sports by the Book, South Point Studio. Jeff Parles, Alex White's in the middle of your screen, and the very well-dressed, hair perfect, as always, Vinny Magliulo on set.
I've been standing here for a couple hours.
How do we miss it?
Sprayed me down. Good morning.
Well, you're in the Ralph Sirocco seat, right? Well, not seat. You're standing.
In the Ralph Sirocco spot.
Yeah.
There's no replacing Ralph Sirocco.
There is no replacing Ralph. 100%. Race Day Las Vegas.
He's in the saddle. I'm standing here.
Yeah, and if anybody is watching us, we came over from Ralph's show.
Yes,
welcome.
thank you.
Yes.
Also, shout out to Wagon Sports in the chat right now. If you're in the chat, please comment along. If you have any of your plays, you can comment along. Sean will tell us what they are, and we'll critique you like you critique us. No, I'm kidding. We're curious to see what everyone's on here today, and especially this first full football weekend with the pros coming tomorrow, which we're all looking forward to. Vinny, you, me, Chrissy talked about this yesterday, and we get to talk about it again and get Alex's perspective on Nebraska and Colorado. 6.5 behind us right now. The Huskers laying it. Vinny, you guys opened this game 8, which was as high as I saw it in the market, and the bettors have taken it down to the 6.5 with a total of 55.5. That's also down from the opener.
Yeah, I know this is a 4:30 game too, so obviously there's going to be a lot of carryover to it. I mean, it did get as low as 7 and then went back to 7.5. So we did toggle back and forth between 7 and 7.5 during the week, but now in the last day and a half, it's more Colorado money, but I think we'll see plenty of Nebraska money. Right? There's a lot of incentive here for the Huskers after last year. I know that their chant all week in their huddles and in their training has been about being disrespected last year. They feel that, but look, it's a rivalry game, and coaches are going to try to, in this case, what they've been yelling all week is it's personal. So, all right. Then listen, the game starts. There'll be plenty of emotion before and during. But, Nebraska's defense played pretty well last year when you think about it. They sacked Shedeur Sanders in that game about 8 times, without 2 of their best defenders. Now, Colorado's worked in the offseason to recruit both offensive and defensive linemen. Didn't seem to work out a whole lot last week either, right? So, Nebraska's quarterback play last year was the issue. This year, it's been better so far. It's very early, but it's been serviceable. But you can tell that the team is more comfortable with who's under center. And, I think that this will be overall a good two-way betting game. And when we get closer to kickoff at 4:30 Pacific, there'll be plenty of support for Nebraska as well.
I took the points here with Colorado. I got them at 7. I was happy to get a full touchdown there. I made Nebraska a 4-point favorite at home, kind of like Michigan, where I just got to take that full touchdown and see, especially if my numbers say. But, Nebraska played well last week against UTEP. To your point, last year too, defensively, but you can't take a whole lot of that. UTEP is a below-average FBS school. And then on the flip side, North Dakota State is a really good FCS team. And I know that they couldn't run the ball very well, and it was all Sanders, 445 yards for him. But they do have the 2 best players on the field, so getting 7 points with Colorado.
So we're opposite on this game. The biggest takeaway from Nebraska, I don't want to take too much, but we talked about this a little bit yesterday. Their quarterback play was so abysmal last year. Awful. You would have been
they had
better.
3 players under center in some games, not just during the course of the season.
I honestly, all 5 of us in the studio might have done equal production to what Nebraska quarterbacks, maybe even a little better than what they did a year ago. Dylan Raiola looks like the real deal. And he looked very good in his debut against, again, subpar UTEP, but still looked good. Alex, you mentioned it. The 2 best players in this game are in Colorado, but I think that's going to be basically every game Colorado plays this year. They may be the best at number 1 and number 2, but 3 through 90, whatever, they're not going to be better than the other teams more times than not.
So you like Nebraska?
I do. I like the Huskers. Do it.
Two-way action at the desk.
Yeah, there we go. Let's go. There it is.
Love
there
it.
It is.
Bookmaker's dream.
We do have different numbers, though, Vinny. So
it's all right.
It's a shame. If you'd gotten a 7.5, we could have middled this thing at 7, Alex.
Now you're getting greedy. Come on
now. Oklahoma and Houston, the next game up. Sooners. So actually, the market's starting to actually come in on Houston here. Open 30. Yep. Now it's down to 27.5. So we actually have gone through. All right, we've gone through a key number now at 28. So we're now through that at 27.5.
4 touchdowns. Yeah, we were on yesterday, and it was 28.5. So more Houston money coming in overnight. And I think maybe is this a there's a couple of factors here, right? I mean, look, credit UNLV for the job they did against Houston in Houston last week. Is this a little bit of a look-ahead spot maybe for Oklahoma in terms of, them watching what happened last week with Houston, maybe overlooking them a little bit? Value with 4 touchdowns, and even no matter who they're playing next week, right? It's not a situation where. I think bettors are looking at the fact that there are 4 touchdowns here going towards Houston.
I think that's too many points.
Yeah.
I just worry about Brett Venables because I do know he likes to run it up. I think Houston, to your point, I think it's a little bit of an overreaction. They did look really bad against UNLV.
UNLV looked great, though, right?
And UNLV looked good.
Of course,
and
we're biased.
They're better defensively, though, than they were last year. And we saw that against Houston. And Donovan Smith really struggled. Then they had a backup quarterback, Ale, come in, 7 of 8, 74 yards and a touchdown. Where Donovan Smith, their starting original quarterback, Houston, threw 2 picks. So I think we might see more of Ale here and may be able to help lead Houston and keep them in this game with all those points. I made Oklahoma 20 in this one at home. But,
oh, wow.
The bigger the spread, the bigger difference you want to have, right? So
absolutely, Alex.
Even if that's 7.5, it's not equivalent to a 2.5 around a 3. So
Alex's example. I'm sorry, Alex.
Yep.
Your example is you're making your numbers. You're comparing to what's what we hang and what's out there in the market, and you're betting on your power ratings, and that's just you've got to believe in your numbers. So again, that's an excellent exercise, and we get a lot of folks inquiring about about power ratings and how to make them and who to follow. Start making your own, and even if it's for a conference, you don't have to make it on all 130 plus teams in D1, but if you start and then following it that way, build your model. So good for you.
Moving along. By the way, nothing for me in this game. I thought everything's all fine.
One-way action.
And Houston looked very, very bad last week. Maybe UNLV's quite good, but Houston did not look anywhere. It didn't look like they belonged in the field last week against UNLV. Appalachian State and Clemson. Here's the question with this game. This is what it comes down to on my end. How much of what we saw last week with Clemson getting really beat up in the second half by Georgia? How much of that was Clemson, and how much of that is the fact that Georgia is obscenely good and is the best team in the country? I think we're going to learn that today because Appalachian State actually a pretty darn good non-power conference team, and this is not the easiest of games for Clemson to have lined up right after the physical beating they took from Georgia.
It was a physical beating. Now, the first half was not off. I mean, Clemson's defense was good. It just got worn down. And Etienne did not play last week for Georgia on top of it, right? Yeah. So think about that in the offensive backfield. But I think the key, Clemson's got to get some offense generated, and maybe this is a game where they sort some things out. Certainly, no disrespect to App State, who's always got a very solid, fundamental program. Certainly not up to Georgia's standard. Georgia is good, and they're deep. And a more experienced offense, I think, contributed to what happened last week as well. So for Clemson here, it's really stayed at the number. I mean, it's been 17 all week. There hasn't been a lot of movement on this game. In fact, I don't think we've gotten off of 17. A little bit more movement towards the total. You figure that Clemson may want to open things up a bit. I think so. And App State, given what we saw last week, maybe they can put up a couple of touchdowns. But that's what Clemson's got to sort out is obviously on their offensive side.
I thought this number was right. To go back to your question, Jeff, I think 70% of that was more towards Georgia and how good they are, and Kirby Smart, because really, I mean, it was a battle in the first half, and he made adjustments, and you saw that in the second half. Mm-hmm. So I think that's more towards Georgia than Clemson. Bring up a good point, though. That was a very tough game for them. They might start a little bit slow here in this one against App State.
I took the points with the Mountaineers. The Mountaineers are game here. I'm not saying they're going to win the game. I'm not saying that. But their defense is good enough to slow down that Clemson offense. Now, Klubnik I've never really liked. It's going to come down to that run game for Clemson, really, if they're going to have any shot of winning an ACC and getting to a college football playoff. Vinny, you mentioned this yesterday. At some point, Dabo Swinney has to adjust in the transfer portal. It's just this day and age, you can't have two guys added to your roster if you expect to compete on a high level through the portal. And that's all Clemson has, the lowest in FBS by a significant margin.
When you're competing with the Georgias of the world who recruit exceptionally well, Ohio State exceptionally well, like so there's the recruiting element. But then there's the transfer portal, which is part of the recruiting element. And those two teams, look at those two programs alone, who are two of the top, power-rated schools in college football, right? So you look at those two, and look what they do with the transfer portal. It's a fact of life now. You're going to have to adjust. You don't have to like it, and I think a lot of coaches don't. I think some coaches got out of coaching because of it, and because of that, combined with the NIL. Situation, but the reality is that's the world in which we're living in now. So either embrace it or it's going to pass you by. And then I think in the case of Clemson, they've suffered as a result of that. Now, Dabo Swinney's a smart guy. I think at some point he'll either have to adjust or I don't know. Maybe he'll be sitting next to Nick Saban next year. I don't know.
Moving along, guys, to the. Still in this night slate, We go a little bit later. Well, I was going to say Pac-12 after dark, but rest in peace. Oregon hosts Boise State in Eugene. Vinny, this is one of the more intriguing games of the night. Chris brought it up. It is a heat wave, but thankfully for everybody, it'll be about 10, 15 degrees cooler at nighttime in Autzen. It's still going to be in the low 90s, which is pretty hot up there in Oregon. It's 18. This has gone up and down the ladder, as high as 21, as low as 17.5 on this game. Totals at 62 on Boise and Oregon.
It's interesting here. I think if you're looking at interesting travel for Boise, right? They go all the way down to the deep south last week in humidity and heat. Now, and I'm sure they came home, during the week after that game, and now they go up to Autzen Stadium to play Oregon, who I think people were surprised. I thought they figured they would look a lot better last week, but listen, game one, we don't want to overreact too much. Both teams did find a way to win their games last week. Boise, I give them credit for what they're doing, to start the season before they get into conference play, right? Because they're one of the favorites. Actually, I think they're the favorite for the Mountain West. So you look at that, and that's going to become a playoff scenario. So, but I think I would be a little bit, concerned about the travel for them. But the fact of the matter is, when you look at it, as you mentioned, 18.5, we got as high as 3 touchdowns, got as low as 17.5. Now it's gone back up. Yesterday we were at 19 when we were on the show with Chris, now 18. So overall two-way action on the game. And it's positioned nicely because these, you've got later games. I mean, the last one is, and I'm sure we'll get to it, the SC game. But these late games are going to be, just bet extremely heavy. And this game here is going to fall into that category.
My number doesn't say it, but this is one that I did take the over because I do think we might get into a shootout here between these two. And diving deeper into Oregon's win last week, 24-14 over Idaho, which, a lot of people were shocked about. But Dylan Gabriel was fantastic, 41 of 49, 84%, 7.8 yards per pass with his 2 touchdowns. So is there a chance that Oregon went very vanilla here against Idaho and we'll see more in this game against Boise. And then on the flip side, Boise looked really good. Madison Madsen at quarterback. Saw a little bit of action last year, but not too much now. He is the starter. Looked great. Their defense, not so much. They couldn't stop Georgia Southern. And we saw, I think 100 points in that game between those two, 56-45.
Ashton Genty with a monster game a week ago. Again, if there's going to be a non-power conference guy to win a Heisman Trophy, it's going to be Genty here in 2024. I'm with you, Alex. I think this is a shootout. We're making a lot out of what happened to Oregon last week. Their offensive line struggled against an FCS team, a good FCS team, but still an FCS team in Idaho. I think the over is the best play in this game. Also, I think this line has also come back a little too far. If this is a week 1 game, this probably would have been 22.
Oh, would have been
23, maybe even 24. Maybe I'm getting
still
a little
Boise.
high.
Yeah,
but
high.
it still would have been 3 touchdowns at least, and we have gotten below that.
Yeah.
But it has been bet over too to both of your points.
Yep.
So hopefully you got it earlier because it is climbing, and I think that total will continue to rise, especially as we get through the day.
Rapid fire here on these last few games: Texas Tech and Wazoo. Vinny, you guys sitting at 1. I know Chris yesterday liked Wazoo. Total at 66.
Change your favorites here. Opened with Texas Tech as 1-point favorites. The total's been kind of steady. They did go up to 67 at one point. We're sitting at 66, but now Washington State's a 1-point favorite.
Alex, I know you have a play on Oregon State and San Diego State. Aztecs 5-point dogs at home against the Beavers in this one late night at Snapdragon Stadium.
I have Oregon -1, so I do think that there is some value here grabbing the points with SDSU and their quarterback that they got. Where's he? Danny O'Neill has 3-star quarterback. Other schools were very interested in him in Louisville, Iowa. Dual threat quarterback. He's been good for SDSU, and maybe they just aren't as bad as we thought they were going to be coming into this year. So I took the points here based off the number and what my numbers were.
4.5 up to 6 and now 5. So coming back to Alex's train of thought.
Again, new era Sean Lewis, of course, second game as the head coach at San Diego State. Oregon State still a team without a conference at this rate. Vinny, Arizona State was one of the more impressive teams in week one, really thumping Wyoming, and that game was over early. This number is totally different because of that result in week one. Sun Devils opened 6. Now they're 5-point favorites at home against Mississippi State.
Yeah, I did they took the points with the SEC school here. I think Mississippi State is, power rated certainly in our world on the lower end of the SEC. But both teams won last week, and Arizona State probably one of the more impressive wins, as you mentioned, Jeff.
Alex, another Pac-12 game. We saw USC win here in Vegas a week ago. Now they're 30-point favorites. That is a mover earlier in the day today. That's the biggest line in town right now on USC, 30 against Utah State with a total of 63.
That means I got another bad line here at 29 with Utah State. I just think it's way too many points. And I like USC. I was very impressed with their performance last week and their win over LSU defensively, especially, and at the quarterback position, stepping in for Caleb Williams. But I just think this is too many points, especially after that big win over LSU. I can't remember who they have coming up next. And then on the flip side, Utah State, guess who's at quarterback, or one of the quarterbacks playing for that spot is Bryson Barnes, who was jumped in for Cam Rising last year with the Utes and upset USC. So he's not going to be intimidated or worried about jumping in here and playing against them. Now, does Utah State have as much talent? We will see. I just think that is way too many points here. 28 or above, I think you're okay.
Real quick, Vinny, USC is a bye next week, and then they go to Ann Arbor.
Right.
So it's not quite a generic look ahead, but could play in that fashion.
But the fact that they are laying it, they laid 4 touchdowns, so they 29 up to 30 now. And again, this is the last game of the night. Everything is going to be going to it. This a lot of support for SC traditionally here in Las Vegas, and I mean we're gonna listen. There's no even with this big number who we're going to need in this game because everything is tied to it. So right now, 30 and climbing.
I'd rather be with you guys, I think.
Thank you, Alex.
Last one in Charlotte tonight, NC State and Tennessee.
Yep.
Vinny, Vols are 9. This was as high as 10, as low as 7.5. Total's only gone up from 59.5 to 61 on Tennessee in this neutral site game in Charlotte.
Yeah, I mean, NC State, probably a little more impressive, I think, than some people thought maybe. Good passing game. I think if there's – look, Tennessee's a solid team. Their defense is very good. I'd say if there's any question about their defense, it's probably their secondary. That's why I brought up NC State's passing game. So, but overall, we've seen two-way on this game, which is great. And good, nice spot, too, 4:30 right now, the late afternoon there. This will be a very popular game. You mentioned it, Jeff, as low as 7.5, as high as 10. So, and when it got to 10, even 9.5, more seasoned bettors, they grabbed the points in this one.
Nothing for me in this one, but I am curious your thoughts, Jeff, if you have anything you like in this.
So Tennessee just ran UT Chattanooga out. What are you going to do? And not a surprise. We know Heupel does not take the foot off the gas pedal at any point. NC State was losing going into the fourth quarter last week against Western Carolina.
They had, I will say this, to your point, and what I said, that their first three quarters, but that fourth quarter was very good. They played, I think, up to their potential. It took them a while to get going.
So the question mark in this game is, what do we get out of Grayson McCall? That's what it comes down to. Of course, the Coastal Carolina, great, now at NC State. What are we getting out of him? I know Nico is we'll get Nico's last name by the end of the season, I promise everybody. But on the Tennessee side, he looked great in his first debut. And the one thing that kind of disappeared for Tennessee last year, which made them great with Hendon Hooker, was that they were willing to just throw the ball over 15 yards more than anyone in the country. Last week, they did that. A third of their plays were air yardage of 15 yards or more. Which,
good point.
If that's the Tennessee offense we're going to see, and Nico's up to the task the whole year, Tennessee's going to be quite good like they were 2 years ago before Hendon Hooker got hurt. Not what they were last year with Joe Milton, who, for whatever reason, everyone seems to love, even though he's not any good. So I would actually only lean to the under in this game, even though I just said what I said about the offenses. I would only lean to the under. That is a lot of points in an NC State game. So that would be the lean in that primetime one in Charlotte. All right. We're back tomorrow, 9 a.m., right here at Sports by the Book, right on the channel, getting you ready for week 1 in the National Football League, a sentence I've been waiting to say for a very long time. Good luck on your plays, Alex. Vinny, thank you as always. Sean, Drew Dog, good job. I'm Jeff Parles. We'll see you again tomorrow here on Sports by the Book.